are we on the verge of a virtual bloodbath in the RV industry? Like, what are the trends? What are the things that are happening? Because depending on what stats you look at and who you choose to listen to, which is always up to you, you're going to get a variety of messages. What I've done here is I've gone through this last month. I've peeled out a bunch of different stats from a bunch of different sources. We're going to look at things that are being shipped, overall value trends in the RV industry in both the new and the used RV market. We're going to be even looking at some things like updates on gas pricing to help you kind of make some plans and forecast a little bit what are we going to be looking at for the summer and maybe into fall camping season. We're going to be looking at some things that are really trending in the RV industry, where things are going, whether we think that's a good thing or not. I guess that's a matter for discussion, and that's where I would welcome you to chime in. As we go through today's topics, feel free to chime in, leave some comments, and let us know what you're thinking. And if you appreciate how a lot of the stuff that we're going to be sharing today isn't necessarily really awesome and beneficial from an RV sales generation standpoint, but we're still putting it out there in that relentless pursuit of transparency for you. Make sure you like this video and hit that subscribe button. Leave us a little note that says, hey, thanks nerd, or thanks Bishes, or anything like that. And let's get started, because I've got a big mix of stuff for you today. First, just to establish some baseline data here, one of the barometers that I look at as an indicator of the current health of the manufacturing side of the RV industry is pretty directly, how many RVs are they actually building? So get you a chart and graphs and all the fun numbers and things here, and I could go through and deep dive into that. But the long story short, the Cliff Notes version of this is that there's about 50% fewer RVs being built and shipped to dealerships right now versus the same time last year. And that's a lot. That's a major swing in variance, obviously. Market conditions are very, very different. Dealers still have stuff in stock they didn't have previously, and it's worth noting that RVs being shipped and RV sales are not necessarily the exact same thing. Usually there's a little bit of a correlation right there, and certainly the one can affect the other very directly. And not trying to downplay it, it's not RV sales are not as strong as they were the last 2 years in a crazy artificial, inflated, wacky season or anything like that. So this is one of those cases where it's data, it still requires interpretation, and that's what I want to do today, is dive through a little bit more and give you a little broader spectrum view into what's happening in the heart of the RV industry, basically. But I opened this video using a very aggressive word I've never said on camera before: bloodbath. There are cases where there is and is going to have to be essentially a reckoning in the RV industry. Here's what I mean. We did some deep dive stats into national inventory stats, not just Bish's RV, but all the RVs available across every dealership in North America. There are some brands whose active in-stock inventory that you can see when you visit a dealership is comprised up to 96% of it being 2022 models, with 2024 models just on the horizon. That's a problem. But it's not across the board. That's not the entire industry. It varies greatly. That's the most extreme instance I found. I found instances where there are manufacturers whose inventory represented actively on the grounds at dealerships is as low as 4% of it being comprised of 2022 models. So it really varies a great deal. And I think some of the variance there is, like, if you saw Thor's first quarter profit reports, they were like 10% of what they were the previous years. It was a fraction of it, because Thor was working more with customers and more with dealers to help facilitate the sale of that 2022 inventory, whereas not every manufacturer has done that, and it's about to catch up with a couple of them in a big way, because not only are they not their units now getting dangerously aged, they're still sitting at the same potentially inflated pricing, and there's about to be a model year change, which is going to devalue those even further. That is one of those potential bloodbath things I'm talking about out there. But there's also a little bit of a potential bloodbath coming to a lot of smaller dealerships, so we'll get into that in a little bit. This is kind of a good news, bad news situation. Good news for you potentially as a consumer is you can still get a new RV sitting out there right now that in a lot of cases are being sold for a literal loss below invoice. And I've been saying this for a little while, but it's about to become very, very true in a lot of cases, where it was true in more select cases for a little bit. So there might be just some awesome, awesome deals out there for you. Where it's kind of tricky bad news is when a piece of inventory is made, its invoice is snapshotted. Here's how much it costs to make it that day. Well, that doesn't change. And as some raw material costs have come down, that has made, replacement inventory sometimes a more attractive option. I've seen instances where you can get a new 23 for less than even an older 23 or some weird, stupid thing like that. Now, that can be managed by dealerships by properly managing their dollars, but I've really learned, I've been doing this since 2009, I've really learned that a lot of places really suck at managing their dollars. It's kind of shocking, actually, how it seemingly rudimentary it would be to do that, and it doesn't get done effectively in a lot of cases. What that means, though, is that backlog, that slug, that glut is putting pressure on dealerships like, listen, I'm not going to replace that thing because then it'll make it near impossible to sell the one that I have in stock. So that's really slowing down the new chain of manufacturing, and you may actually see manufacturers who have been at one dealership for 20 years or something like that suddenly changing teams and finding a new new dealership to do partners or business with, because they got to find somebody who wants to sell their product so they can keep building things so they can keep the lights on. So what are manufacturers doing to kind of, help grease the wheels and get things moving around? Well, I've talked in previous industry update installments about various, rebate things that are potentially going on out there, and there is still a little bit of that out there potentially. But backing up a little bit, I started, like I said, in 2009, deep recession period. And in my career, until this year, I've only seen the industry go up. Now, normally, historically, if you look at the RV industry, it ran on about a 3 to 5 year cycle of, success to downturn, and that's just kind of how it floated and fluttered. It's the last 13 years have been unprecedented in how many consecutive years things grew, increased, and improved in terms of the financial success of the industry and the volume. Well, during that time, every single year, RVs seem to be getting a little fancier. They always add another widget, add another whiz-bang every single year. And as a result, the price tag keeps creeping up every single year. And I think we've kind of hit a point here where manufacturers have even publicly stated, we hit the point that we can't ask any more money for the stuff we have, and we think we may have actually gone a little bit too far, to which most of us go, duh. So how are manufacturers working on handling that? Well, I tell you, the buzzword, the trending word in Elkhart County, Indiana, which is the heart of the RV industry, where over 90% of RVs are made, basically, is decontenting. Taking what they have and ripping stuff out of it and streamlining it, a nice way of saying it, to produce a less expensive product that is more affordable. In theory, it makes a lot of sense, but there's 3 ways that I see this kind of being accomplished. The first way is the way I don't like, where they take exactly what they've already been building and they just strip stuff out of it. And I don't like that because the end result, yes, is something less expensive, but I don't know that it's something that I want, because you look at it and it's it looks unfinished. It looks intentionally cheapened up, and it makes you just not feel good about it. Because you look at it and you're like, yeah, but it looks like there's supposed to be a thing there. And yeah, there was. We took that out. So it just looks like it's not done. The second way is there are some manufacturers who have taken their entire line and just said, stop, collaborate, listen, bring it back to basics. And they have totally reset their lines for something that's a little simpler, streamlined, and more affordable. I don't have an issue with that. That's kind of listening to market trends. That makes a little bit of sense. My preference is kind of what I'm seeing for option number 3, and that is where a manufacturer doesn't forget what got them to the dance, but they also bring to market a specific, subset of their floor plans, or a new mini series or something like that, specifically designed and tuned to give you all their major features without any of the fluff stuff that maybe, while very nice, you don't necessarily need. But when they do that, it's kind of built again from the bottom up in something that's done very intentionally and very cleanly, and it doesn't just look stripped down basic and hacksaw jury rigged or anything like that. There's a bunch of different ways that different manufacturers are going about it. And then, of course, there are some manufacturers like, no, we think we got this figured out. And those are the manufacturers whose inventories out there are currently 96% comprised of 2022 models. So this new price-focused theme and methodology here that some manufacturers have, it makes sense. It's potentially really good news for consumers. You know, because I've seen a lot of people leave comments, and leave me a comment if this is like you feel like this applied to you over the last couple of seasons. A lot of people said, you know, Josh, I had to kind of give up my dream of going camping, and I enjoy your channel, but I've just been priced out of the marketplace. Well, this might reignite some of that hope and bring some new opportunities out there. But it may also be like the nail in the coffin for maybe some smaller manufacturers, but especially some dealerships. And generally speaking, the smaller the store, the more danger they might be in right now. A smaller store, if they have inventory hang around a little bit longer, it hurts them a little bit more. It's more important for a smaller store to keep that inventory rolling. Bigger store, bigger pockets, they can tend to weather the storm a little bit better and, you know, come out of it on the other side. So if a store is kind of struggling right now in a reduced marketplace, and if they didn't manage their inventory and they came into the year too heavy with products that aren't selling right now because for whatever of the various reasons it's not the trend that people are looking for, they don't necessarily want to purchase, that puts them in a really bad spot. And what that is creating is basically an absolute hot nest for dealership consolidation. I've talked about it in past months, over the last year, really. You know, frankly, me wearing a Bish's, well, a nerd hat, but a Bish's RV shirt is an example of that to an extent. Now, my family store, we weren't in financial trouble. My dad was just getting old and he was ready to get out of it, and I supported him on that because frankly, I don't ever want that job. The top job, not my job. I think that job sucks, and more power to and respect to anybody who takes that job. Sorry, squirrel. Anyway, back to the task at hand. There's some stores that are going to be in some trouble, and they're going to be looking for a way out, and they're going to be kind of looking for anything, and the value of these stores is going down in real time. And what that means is that some of these bigger dealership groups and chains are just going to start gobbling up these things. Actually, there was recently a very public statement made by a very large RV dealer group that says they plan to add nearly 100 stores to their lineup catalog network. There we go. That's the word. To their network over the next 5 years, and it's really almost just history repeating itself. If you look at the trends of like the automotive industry, of hotels, even same things kind of happen right after a period of massive success where everybody thinks, oh my gosh, you just don't get no better than this. All of a sudden, the harsh reality kind of sets back in, and suddenly places that thought they just had it made realize that they need to get out real quick. So don't be surprised if your favorite family-owned local business has a new name on the shingle within the next 5 years. So what about the used RV market? Well, the previous couple months, the number of RVs coming across wholesale auctions blocks, sales basically, the total volume was dwindling a little bit, and the average age was getting younger and value was creeping up because the cheaper, older options were getting picked off to have a more affordable, alternative to a brand new expensive RV sitting on a dealership's lot. This last month, though, and understand when you look at this chart, the stats come in about 2 months delayed or something like that. So there, there's always a little bit of a delay in there. But if you look at the most recent month's data, the volume and the value of the average used RV coming across a wholesale auction block shot up a chunk in both cases. Motorized, towable, it seems like in the past couple months, like 1 month motorized was up and towable was up, or vice versa, and the other was down. This month they both they took right off. So I started thinking, okay, what's causing this? Let's look into this. So I dove into it a little bit further. Again, so you don't have to. It's like scrubbing bubbles. I do the work so you don't have to. Ironically, I'm not good at scrubbing things with bubbles. But what I'm getting at is I think what we're seeing is through show season this year, there were a bunch of RV orders that are now starting to get built because of the amount of time it takes for an order to get through, processed, and get built. We're seeing a whole bunch of new RVs get delivered to RV dealerships that are basically already sold, and we're now seeing a wave of trade-ins coming through. I literally almost fell down, just got dizzy randomly. Must be all that hot air I'm blowing. The result there is we're seeing a lot of later model, lower use RVs enter the used RV market. And with dealerships having plenty in stock, they're not looking to sit there and hang on to it. They're kind of taking in the trade-in. They didn't free up room for it in the meantime and said, well, I guess we got to let this thing go, and they're running it to an auction just to help keep their dollars liquidated and rolling. So what this means for you if you're buying an RV is there's going to be more used RVs available, although no real significant relief on the price tag of those. But if you're trading an RV, it will generally mean that the value of your RV is holding unusually strong right now. And those are the kind of statements that often don't earn me a lot of friends sometimes in this business. Like the other people that I know, like I know other people at other different dealerships and stuff like that. And they'll kind of message me privately like, why do you tell people stuff like that? Like, that's not helping. Well, doesn't have to help, it just has to be true, you know. So if you appreciate, again, the clarity and the candor, hit that subscribe button if you're new with us, like our video. So let's jump over to manufacturing news. I've mentioned a couple times we're approaching a model year change, the 2024 model year. There's a lot of places that don't want me even saying those words right now because like, shut up, we need to sell the stuff we have. Well, again, it doesn't matter if I say it or not, it's true and it's happening, so deal with it. When are we going to start seeing some 24s? Well, technically, there already are some available. Some manufacturers were totally legally able to start calling some of their stuff 2024s if they didn't already exist at the start of the 23 model year. So that's a thing that's out there. But that's really the exception to the rule. According to the general letter of the law in the RV world, you won't tend to see any sort of model change until about June. Well, yeah, no, that would be... I'm an idiot because I forget that I'm recording this about a couple days ahead of time. Yeah, about the time that this video comes out, geez, I'm stupid. Some manufacturers will literally, legally be able to call their stuff 2024 models. Now, the manufacturers who jump on that real early don't expect anything new on their products. There'll be probably an exact copy of a 2023 until they have a chance to actually start applying some model change updates. And you will start to see that begin to happen. Like each production wave will see some new things that manufacturers have lined up. Like they come up with a plan, but they can't always implement everything all at one time. So you get about 2 months of builds there that are a little bit wonky and not totally, completely updated. And that will have cycled through, and like a hard, full, finally we're there model change will really officially have happened by about August of this year. Again, with a lot of manufacturers and a lot of dealerships really worried about what's already in stock, I haven't heard a lot of manufacturers really barking too hard about what they do have planned moving forward. But as soon as I do get some 2024 model updates, I'll do the best I can. And if you want to stay tuned on those, again, make sure you tune into the channel here regularly, and I'll get out anything I can whenever I can. And in case you missed it here on this channel, Alliance RV has recently cracked into a new market segment. Previously really only known for their fifth wheels, they had technically broken into the travel trailer market with a couple of toy haulers, but when you think toy hauler, I don't think you tend to think traditional travel trailer market. With the introduction of their new Delta series, they're now bringing a lot of their cool, fun features down into a market segment that they've never addressed before. So, you know, people with smaller vehicles, smaller budgets will be able to take home an Alliance RV if that was always kind of a dream for you. Now, there's parts of the RV that are, you know, very similar from what you've seen before, but they're doing some things that you've never seen in this class. Like they're offering standard dual air conditioners on 50 amp service in floor plans that a lot of manufacturers won't even offer 50 amp service, let alone second air. They're using the same power saving soft start kind of air conditioners on their trailers they're using on their fifth wheels that will allow you to run 2 airs on 30 amp service. They've like completely rethought and reinvented the front pass-through compartment on a travel trailer to do things and functions that you've really never seen in the market before. So it's really kind of exciting to see, you know, that drive and that innovation. I think the companies who are trying to think outside the box and come up with something differently, those are the ones that I think are going to succeed. You know, rolling back the clock to when I started in the industry at the depth of the recession in '09, it was the manufacturers who found a way to maintain originality were the ones that springboarded and springboarded with a T, hard T, I don't know, springboarded and catapulted into success in the years moving forward. So maybe keep an eye on them. And the new kids on the block, Brinkley RV, continue to kind of turn heads here. They've officially moved into their first big mega production facility. They're not even fully moved into their offices yet, and they've already broken ground on their second facility as they continue to ramp up and expand, where a lot of other manufacturers are really kind of closing ranks and tightening up. They're growing and expanding right now, which I think really says a lot right there. What's interesting here is I've kind of seen their plan. They have a whole plot of land laid out, and sometimes starting fresh, like a lot of times when a new manufacturer comes out, they'll find an old facility that somebody else had already built. They kind of move into it and see what they can do with it. Brinkley's starting with their own facilities here. They're building their own buildings, and they have basically they have plans to build like up to 8 on this one main mega campus that they have, cracking into the second one right now. What's really interesting is because they got to start fresh, they got to really design a factory to be as optimal as possible, and then they're just going to try to build multiple copies of that. And what's really neat about that is it totally maximizes efficiency. It standardizes processes to the nth degree. And if you move some of your staff, you shift from one place to another, or if you need to, like let's say you're getting more orders for product A than product B, you can shift your production between buildings more easily without suffering from staff that don't have a clue what they're doing, basically. So it's really interesting to see what's going on there. Now, they haven't formally announced dates yet, but they have also made it pretty clear that they do plan to move into a smaller fifth wheel market and eventually some travel trailers. We may start seeing something on that potentially within a year's time, so keep an eye out there. I'll give you some future updates on that. And in an interesting twist regarding Brinkley, there was a quiet kind of announcement that sort of ran through the undercurrents of the RV industry. When a lot of people heard about the formation of Brinkley RV, there was a big assumption that they were going to start this company up and get it big and going and then sell it off to somebody. I could see the logic there, like you could see some of that history there, but Brinkley actually has kind of quietly announced they plan to be a consolidator manufacturer, meaning a manufacturer who ends up buying and bringing other brands into their fold. And that may be very interesting, because if you really look at it out there right now, if you look at what I call Thor and Forest River, they make like 85% of all RVs. Winnebago is the next largest total banner, effectively. But a lot of people don't realize Winnebago also includes things like Grand Design and some other brands in there. And then after that, it's just there's not a lot. I think Alliance is probably one of the next largest out there, and they're one of the few independent manufacturers out there. So it'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out, how and if the market ends up shaking up. I don't know that a little more competition isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good for everybody, for you, for me, for everybody if that happens. So keep an eye on that. And in a marketplace where currently year to date, fifth wheel sales are down 31%, Cougar has defied the odds. I was really surprised. I started pulling through some stats, and not only have they bucked that trend, but they've actually grown 1.5% in a otherwise you could say distressed market. They've become a multi-year consecutive winner of a gold level DSI award winner, and they also happen to be one of the manufacturers who did option 3 in terms of the price focusing that I mentioned, where they've maintained their higher trim offerings. That was perfect. I didn't plan on that, but they've also introduced their Cougar Sport Series, which has brought them into a new price point that previously people who maybe wanted a Cougar couldn't really access. So it's actually possible. This is really interesting and I think really exciting. If they keep on this trend by the end of the year, they may just retake the title of #1 overall fifth wheel builder out there. So again, it's a brand to keep your eye on. And with the success of the recent launch of Jayco University, Jayco has expanded that platform to some of their other brand that they own, basically. So you might find StarCraft University and Highland Ridge University out there. And if you hadn't heard about this, what it is basically, they created like over 70 of these little online, almost courses, but like focused videos developed in conjunction with the National RV Training Academy to help owners better understand their RV and to know how to use it, troubleshoot it, take care of it, avoid problems, things like that. And that makes sense to me because we actually did kind of a dive into this on our own in Bish's RV. And what we kind of discovered is that nearly 70% of what people perceive as systems-related failures or issues is actually just a lack of understanding. The owner doesn't know how their thing is supposed to work. Now, every single customer that buys an RV from us, we go through and we show them how to use stuff, but the fact is, some of these RVs have so many widgets and whiz-bangs that it is a lot of information to unpack very quickly, and I don't think it's a reasonable expectation for somebody to know all of that the first swing out there. So I think it's a really cool trend to see more manufacturers diving in, trying to help educate, take care of their consumers, and I look through some of this stuff. I'd encourage you to do the same. One of the things I think is interesting is, yeah, some of these things are very specific to some of the stuff that Jayco or its subsidiaries, StarCraft and Highland, do. But there's also some stuff like, say, water heaters, furnaces, that like, because there's typically a very limited number of suppliers in the RV industry, people who don't have a Jayco family product could find some benefit in this. Alliance has done some similar stuff, and I hope, like I know Heartland is really starting to work on some information like this. I hope more and more manufacturers continue to invest in their owners because... I mean, what a wild idea, right? And opinions on this next thing here might vary, but it's long been my personal opinion, just one nerdy dude's opinion, that if an employer creates an environment that people want to work, they're happy to work there, they tend to come to work more reliably and do better work when they're there, and that tends to yield a better end result. And I don't know if they do anything like this in your neck of the woods. I'd be kind of curious. Let me know. But around here, around Michiana way, the fictitious land between Michigan and Indiana, a lot of local media sources will do these best of the best things where they just put a category out and anybody in the local area can kind of like, write in and vote for the best category of whatever it is. And recently, in the kind of Middlebury, Elkhart, Goshen, Bermuda triangle of RV production, Grand Design RV was voted the best employer by the people who live there, work there, interact with them on a daily basis. And I think that is an awesome accomplishment. Tip of the hat to them on that. Now, I'll never say they're perfect. Just like I'm not perfect, just like we're not perfect, chances are you're not perfect. Unless you're my wife watching this, in which case, you're perfect. And in the words of John Cleese, and now for something completely different. RV maker Mammoth Overland has recently come out with the craziest thing. Everything on this is over the top and absurd. They came out with this new thing they're calling their Extinction level event. That is the real model name, the ELE Mammoth Overland. And you got to take a look at this thing. It's basically a tank that you tow. So the thing with this thing is, like, first of all, this company came out with a bear-proof RV. Literally, like, this camper can shoot bear spray out both sides of it and has a shell built to withstand like a big bear attack. That is absolutely wild. And they kind of went, I mean, what if we took this further? What if we built something that could literally withstand a zombie apocalypse? And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I say zombie apocalypse in my videos all the time. They actually said that in a press release. So if you're not aware, the parent company here, they actually come from some aircraft design. So they took some of that tech and they basically added onto this thing like, pressure sealing doors. It literally can seal itself from the outside environment and has air purifiers that could recycle the air inside of it for like up to 6 months at a time. It has storage for weaponry in it in case we ever revert to the Hunger Games. You can even pay for a bulletproof upgrade. And if that's not enough, you can upgrade further to get more bulletproofing on your bulletproof camper. Now, what I will say is with only 22 gallons of fresh water, chances are that's going to be your limiting factor on this sucker. But, this thing's just nuts. Here, the fact is, if you've been slacking on your doomsday prep, the good news is that you can now prep for the apocalypse on a budget, comparatively speaking. And for those of you who have been dragging your feet and failing to prepare for the end of the world, remember that May is Procrastination Awareness Month, and this brings us to the end of June's Manufacturer's News Update segment. And a question I sometimes get is people say, you know, Josh, like, who is buying these things? And there's a lot of answers, and one of the things that I think is kind of fueling some of the industry right now is a thing I'm calling canceled flights creating camping nights. And what's going on here is already year to date, at over 2/3, about 70% of leisure travelers have experienced a canceled flight. Now consider, that's not just like business. That's like you booked a flight, you booked a trip 6 months, a year ahead of time, and when it comes time to go, your flight gets canceled, and now you're like, oh crap, what do I do? Well, about 43% of those leisure travelers have supplanted that kind of time since then, after having a canceled flight, instead of deciding to go on another flight, with camping time. And now, not all, like you hear camping. Camping's not exclusively RVing. RVing's a piece of the camping universe, basically, so kind of keep that in mind. But there are a lot of those people who have said, rather than flight, you know, for what I was going to pay on flights, you know, I could get an RV. You know, that could be my monthly payment every year instead of going on a couple flying trips every year. Now, everyone's differences and opinions on that can vary, certainly, but that has been one of the things that has worked for a lot of people. However, the flip side of this is that continues to push more and more people into already crowded RV parks. Now, piggybacking off of that, KOA recently did a study, and there were three just by far and away the most commonly cited challenges to finding. Wow. Sorry, that just came in the viewfinder. That is beautiful. Okay, sorry. Squirrel! Saw something real shiny back there. Basically, when it comes to things like campground congestion, 42% of people said that there just weren't enough camping options. And I think that actually has driven some people to have to look to driving further for like a campsite or a camping opportunity. And along with that, 38% of people polled said they are starting to feel like they have to drive too far to find like a campsite or a camping opportunity, as it were. An additional 26% said that campgrounds were too crowded. And the one that I'm a little bit surprised I haven't seen, because it's definitely a thing that's happened, is the cost of camping sites has gone up quite a bit recently here over the last year and a half. I was almost surprised that wasn't one of the top three things that was cited right there. Now, supporting that, The Dirt, which is like an RV and camping app, they have basically done the digging and conclude. They dug through the dirt. I love it. Sometimes the jokes write themselves, guys. They basically concluded that compared to 2019, finding a campsite is now 5 times harder. That's a big deal. And even compared to just 2 years ago, compared to 2021, campsites are now considered about twice as scarce as they used to be. Because the thing is, although there might be 50% fewer RVs being built right now, that doesn't mean that there's 50% fewer people RVing. That's a really critical distinction right there. I haven't hard checked these numbers, but I would be shocked if there weren't more RVs actively registered and owned by people right now than ever before in the history of history. So kind of keep that in mind. And something else that hasn't happened the way people really thought it would and have been predicting for a couple years. There has not been this mass exodus of the the uneducated RV population. There were a large number of people very loudly voicing the feeling they were certain that in 2 or 3 years, which would be about now, there would be a flood of used RVs entering the market for pennies on the dollar, and they were just going to scoop them up and laugh all the way to the bank. And that just hasn't happened. By and large, people have kept the RVs that they purchased or traded up to something else and have continued camping. They haven't just bailed from the marketplace completely. But as a result, that has put just unprecedented pressure on the RV industry and campground industry. Now, property owners, campgrounds, they are doing things like extending their seasons. Many of them, I think like 43% of campground owners and property owners have said that they plan to either extend their season, increase their number of sites, or do a combination of both, and have been working on it. But the trick is, you can sell RVs and build RVs real quick. It takes a long time to make more campsites and to expand facilities. And there's so many permits and hoops to jump through that a lot of people have just said, nah, I ain't gonna do it. What I got is what I got. And then along with that, like I kind of said a minute ago, the cost of a lot of camping sites for the exact same thing has jumped quite a bit the last couple years. So that has provided additional pressures on a lot of people. And again, I don't love sharing this stuff. This information sucks to share from a business development standpoint, but again, it doesn't have to be flowery to be true. And that's one of the things I really love about being with Bish's RV is they've allowed me to continue what they've even called a relentless pursuit of transparency. So hope you appreciate the information here. And it might be a bummer. A lot of the stuff in this video today, it might be a disappointment. And every month I put these industry updates out and there's at least one person that says, you convinced me not to get a camper. And that's a bummer, but I feel strongly you'd have probably found out one way or another. Maybe at least I just saved you some time. And I've asked something like this before, but I'd love to hear kind of like some rolling input on this. Have you, as an experienced RVer, run into a situation where you're now finding a harder and harder time finding a campsite that you would prefer, having to drive further, anything like that? If you could do me a favor, just leave me some feedback on that. And along with that, let me know kind of like what sort of, like you're in the Pacific Northwest or you're in New England or something like that. Let me know kind of what region you're in. And I'm kind of curious to know, like, what sort of trends are we seeing out there right now? But it's not all bad news, folks. Actually, this is something I'm kind of glad to hear. I'd like to hear more of it. I hope it continues. But basically, we may see some relief at the gas pump this summer. To which everybody says, well, yeah. Now, it seems to vary regionally. Like, if you look at this big old map of the United States here, some states are paying well above national average, and some states are paying well below that. Right now, at the time that I'm recording this video, the average price per gallon of regular unleaded gasoline is about $3.57.2, 3.572. That varies, like I said, very much. So here's some charts kind of looking at a comparison of right now versus 1 year ago and week ago and a month ago, gas prices and diesel fuel pricing over time. Overall, what's happened here is the cost of oil per barrel has dropped a chunk, dropped about $20 per barrel, which puts it in the $60 per barrel window. That's, when you say 20 bucks off a barrel doesn't sound like much. When you realize that $60 a barrel is where it's at, you realize that's a very, very large amount. There's been some turbulence in the oil market, which has facilitated that. And although prices for Memorial Day, like gas prices, have kind of crept up a little bit coming into Memorial Day, overall, the trend of fuel pricing right now is drifting downward slowly and expected to kind of continue that trend for a little while. That means that right now versus 1 year ago on this same date, gas is $1.03 less per gallon on average. That's a huge potential difference. Now, $3.57 a gallon still ain't a discount bargain compared to what a lot of people would like to see or are used to, but it's certainly better than $4.60 a gallon. So I'd be kind of curious to know, looking at the trend of gas prices, understanding that campgrounds are sometimes a little harder to get to, or just campsites that are available in general, is the price of gasoline drifting down a little bit. Is that influencing your summer travel plans with your RV at all, or just summer travel plans in general? Let me know. Man, we have 15 acres here, and I think I stomp all over every single one of them every time I record one of these. I'm one of those people that when I talk on my phone, I pace around the house constantly. Anybody else? But as you can see, I've begun to ramble. So I'm going to wrap this up because I already have talked enough. Folks, thanks again for tuning in. If you have appreciated what we've done here for you today, if you're a returning member of the RV Nerd Herd, at least click that like button if you get the chance. Leave us comments, says, hey, thanks, Bishes, thanks for putting this information out there. Or hit me up with any sort of, I don't care, questions, comments, whatever you feel like sharing. I'd love to hear with it, and I'll do my best to try to answer all of them. So until next time, take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy camping, everyone. You ever have somebody tell you like they listened to a song and they felt like it was, written just for them, talking about them? Well, my Uncle Gary just called me and told me that happened to him, but in the background, all I could hear playing was Redneck Woman. Like he's no high-class broad.